This could really go either way. All in.
Wow.
Everson announces all in.
And Jack 9 in the big blind. Good for a defend. Off to a flop. And a little bit of something for both of our players. We got the flush draw from Suksor. Liu with the gut shot straight draw. Up against a very wide range calling in the big blind. We spoke earlier about good bluffs. Situations where your opponent can do lots of folding. This is certainly one of those because the big blind's calling a lot of hands. He's going to miss very often. And also it's good to have hands that can improve on later streets. This one, of course, the flush draw. So a nice continuation bet spot for Suksor to take. He does, 175,000. Having defended Jack 9, when Liu sees a board where he does connect fairly well, has a chance to improve, I think he'll be doing something other than just folding his hand.
680.
That's something other than folding. He's coming in for a check raise, 680,000 announced. Applying pressure to what is perceived to be a wide continuation bet from Suksor on the button. Let's imagine Suksor c-bets here with something like King 9 of clubs. He's going to get a very quick fold, which means that Liu's bluff is going to be immediately profitable. We can see that Suksor has a hand that's likely to continue. Queen deuce of hearts.
This could get very interesting indeed. Suksor calls the check raise. This hand going to the turn.
And 2 million chips already in this pot. There are some very fun turn cards indeed. The queen is one of them because Liu actually now turns open-ended. And if he wants to put pressure on a hand like ace-3 of clubs, then betting on this turn, he can certainly represent that occasionally he's made a straight himself.
But from Suksor's perspective, Spraggy still has the flush draw. Now has a pair to go with it.
Yep, even more outs. If he was up against an ace, he can now hit a deuce or a queen to get there, to go along with his hearts. Liu not slowing down, 800,000.
And that's the weird thing from Suksor's perspective. He may be thinking about what cards he needs. The irony being, he's actually got the best hand.
Yep. And we may even see a situation where he realizes he has the best hand, right? If he's confident enough to say Liu is bluffing with 8-9 or Jack-9 or even a smaller flush draw, we may even see him hero all the way down. I think for the 800,000 chip price, given he also just picked up a pair, he won't be going anywhere. That is indeed a call, and this is a monstrous pot. 3.6 million chips, and we're off to an all-important river card.
Neither player has pot behind. Suksor the effective stack with 1.81 million, and he rivers the flush.
And it could be a situation where Liu attempts to represent that he has a flush. Some of his bluffs on the flop are going to be flush draws. And if Suksor gets here with ace-3 of clubs, it would make a hand like that a very difficult call. So Liu may fancy his chances of getting a fold by shoving this river. 1.8 million effective behind, about half pot. He's all in.
Shoves on Suksor,
Hard.
who calls all in with the best hand and will get a huge double up through Liu.
What the hell?
You just walked into it, buddy. You just represented the hand your opponent has.
7-5 of hearts in the big for Liu. Fake it till you make it. Liu playing as if he's got a 60 big blind stack. Not that I'm saying there's anything wrong with defending here. And boy, does he flop good here. That's what we call flopping the joint. 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Yes, flopping the joint.
It's actually a board where Iverson, in general, might be inclined to want to do a lot of checking. But if he feels his opponent is playing somewhat tight and he can put a bit of pressure on the final table, it's a little bit of extra leverage that he can try and take advantage of.
Tough to leverage a guy who's flopped a straight. He has to make sure it's true.
He's going to slow play it. He's just going to make the call. I think at 20 big blinds, you don't always have to raise here. Gives your opponent a chance to catch up on the turn.
Everson does not catch up on the turn. The board doesn't get significantly worse for him, though. It wasn't great to begin with. And when Lou checks his cards and then calls, like the worst he's going to have is a flush draw, right?
Yeah, I'm not too sure when people check at their cards what exactly it means, but it's interesting to see Iverson going for the double barrel here, maybe trying to target 4x and 6x to fold, possibly expecting that if Lou had an 8 or better, he might have just went with it on the flop. If he had a hand like 9-7, maybe he would have elected to check raise.
Yeah, I think he's going to have a lot of pair straight draw combos in this dynamic.
Very interesting if Lou just elects to call here, because then the hands you mentioned, the pair plus straight draw, he can have a lot of them once he calls this turn, because he's unlikely to call this turn with just a 4, just a 6. He's likely to have played for stacks on the flop with some of his 8s. So Iverson might end up going for, particularly if we see a spade on the river or something that changes the board drastically. But if I'm Lou, after seeing my opponent bet into me twice, less than 20 big blinds, I'm most likely just going to go all in on this turn.
Yeah.
It's not that your hand necessarily needs a huge amount of protection whilst it can help. It's just that if your opponent does have pocket 10s, ace-9, any of the overpairs, maybe you don't want to see a terrible river card. But Lou is going to continue laying this trap. And as we can see, against Iverson's exact hand, this is the perfect play.
Right. Yeah, I'd probably get a little goofy there and raise and fold out all of the bluffs, thinking that my opponent's probably stronger than he is. Lou checks for the third time. 3.3 million in the middle.
I feel like if this was the queen of spades, the king of spades, an overcard to the board, plus completing the flush, Iverson might have been very tempted to go for it, but on the 6 of spades, it's a little bit less appealing.
That 6 obviously would be one of those pair straight draw combos. That would make up a decent chunk of Lou's range. Also, if Lou has an 8, he might get hero-y with that as well.
I guess Iverson, the last thing he wants is to check and be up against a hand like 4-7, maybe even a hand like 8-7 that he could probably make fold.
Yeah.
But it's just a very tough river card to pull the trigger on.
This could really go either way. All in.
Wow.
Everson announces all in. Now Lou just has to make the call. There is a paired board. There is a potential flush.
Oh, Iverson's going to feel a little bit like this is a slow roll, but it's certainly not. He has to call.
He calls. And Everson is going to lose a massive pot. Just walked right into that one. This style has been working out incredibly well for Everson. And in any other situation, any worse hand than a straight is going to have to maybe lay that down.
As we rejoin the action, looks like we've got 2 pair versus an open-ended straight draw here on the feature table. Bustillo looks like he's raised, defending the big blind from suit saw with the 9-7. Check, check on the flop. Big brick turn.
So worth pointing out that Bustillo only has 16 bigs behind. He was the pre-flop aggressor, elected not to continue the flop with his open-ended draw. And with the lack of a c-bet on the flop, Spraggy, no surprise to see Suzor leading here.
Yep, certainly doesn't want this one to check through again. Definitely trying to build value now. No point having a good hand if you're not going to get paid. So he's coming out firing. 450,000. Bustillo's every right to consider the fact that his jack and his queen are still alive out. Suzor definitely going to be bluffing sometimes. And definitely occasionally just going to have a hand like a 10 with the queen and the jack alive, so may have as many as 14 outs. Plays a time bank card. It is a big bet, James.
Yeah, and that card will get him an additional 30 seconds on the shot clock.
He has just 1.9 million chips in his stack. This is 450,000 to call. So around 25% of them. Big moment.
So easy at this point to spot the people who've never played in an actual card room, questioning why he's wearing a coat. Over-officious air conditioning is the answer to your question. As Bustillo moves all in, snap call by Suzor, who is a 4-1 favorite here, and Bustillo is going to need to spike a king or an 8 on the river to survive.
It's a gutsy play. I can say if he was up against a 10, he has 14 outs. He has just 8. Two pair, too strong.
He qualified online. He's guaranteed his best result here in the EPT Barcelona main event. Does it end here? Is it a payday of 90K? 3 on the river. I know you've been waiting for this one. Bustillo is busto.